morning! So we recently learned that our bed and breakfast does not have the breakfast component. It just has the bed component, so there is no breakfast. We're going to take a train ride this morning, and we certainly should not do that on empty stomachs, so I'm on the hunt for breakfast.
I'm finally up and ready to go.
We are going to make our way down to the train station to take the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway to Lehigh Gorge State Park and then come back to Jim Thorpe.
The train goes from Jim Thorpe to Lehigh Gorge State Park and includes a narrated 75-minute out and back trip that follows the Lehigh River.
You can either ride in a standard coach, which is what we did, or you can sit in the open car, which doesn't have windows. We're so glad we got the standard coach because the temperature outside was only in the mid-40s during our train ride. This route is the more traditional ride that most people take, but they also offer a ride and bike option in which the train takes passengers to Whitehaven, Pennsylvania. Then when the train stops, passengers hop on their bikes and ride the 25-mile Lehigh Gorge Trail back to Jim Thorpe.
When we arrived back at the station, we headed towards the old jail museum. We've heard it's super haunted, and nearly every local we met recommended that we tour it. Clearly, though, everyone else had the same idea. Tours were sold out by the time we reached the jail, and you couldn't buy advance tickets. Just another excuse to come back one day. As an alternative, we opted for the Mauch Chunk Museum.
Centers on these two doors right here. They're hollow. So the river flowing this way gets under this door in the back, which starts lifting this door up because it's slightly high over the top of it. There we go. When that happens, it forms an artificial dam behind it. There we go. The rafts of coal would approach the lock, be stopped by it. Someone on the shore would then open the lock, and in a controlled flood, push the raft down the river over whatever obstacles were in its way.
We visited Jim Thorpe during Memorial Weekend and noticed that there were flags posted around town with images of local veterans. We thought that was such a nice personal touch and a lovely way to celebrate hometown heroes. We couldn't walk by an Alice in Wonderland themed restaurant without going inside, so we had lunch at Through the Looking Glass Cafe before visiting some spots in the Lehigh Gorge State Park. We visited Turnhole Tunnel, which used to be part of the Central New Jersey Railroad. The tunnel was built by Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company, and you can still see the remnants of the rail when you first enter. Explosives were used to create the tunnel, and it had 2 train tracks. It was used until 1910, and then it was condemned and eventually abandoned. Although it's been deemed safe, all of the rocks that you see on the ground were a part of the ceiling at one point, and they all fell, so just be careful if you are ever going to visit Turnhole Tunnel. It wouldn't be a trip to Jim Thorpe without visiting Jim Thorpe himself. We drove a little bit outside of town to visit Jim Thorpe's Memorial. Jim Thorpe was the first Native American to win a gold medal for the United States. In 1912, he won the gold medals for the pentathlon and the decathlon. But what's kind of messed up is he played baseball professionally for 3 years prior to joining the Olympics. Eventually, the Amateur Athletic Union caught wind that he had played professionally prior to the Olympics, and they actually took away his gold medals. In the early 1980s, things were changing a little bit in terms of allowing professional athletes to compete in the Olympics. The Jim Thorpe Foundation was set up to try to earn back his medals, and they actually were able to in 1982. Unfortunately, Jim Thorpe had passed away at that point, but at least he still has his medals back to his name.
What is less fortunate are the circumstances surrounding why Jim Thorpe is even buried in this town. To make a long story short, after his death in 1953, Thorpe's third wife, Patricia, was impatient when after 5 months, the planned memorial in Shawnee, Oklahoma, had yet to raise the $100,000 to honor him. Thorpe was born in Oklahoma and was raised on the Sac and Fox Reservation. That seemed to not really matter to Patricia, however. She had cut a deal with 2 struggling towns in Pennsylvania. If they would merge and rename themselves Jim Thorpe and build a memorial to honor him, she would present them his remains for burial. This was also thought to help boost tourism to the Pennsylvania towns. Even though Thorpe had never set foot in the borough, Patricia Thorpe claimed her husband's body the night before a traditional Sac and Fox burial ceremony could take place in Oklahoma and sent him to the borough of Mauch Chunk. This ended up being a huge legal battle that ended in 2015 with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that Thorpe's remains would stay in the Pennsylvania town named after him, much to his family's disapproval. So while the borough of Jim Thorpe has taken great strides to honor him, we can't help but think he belongs back home in Oklahoma. After visiting the memorial, we headed back into the historic district of Jim Thorpe for dinner.
We learned while on our ghost tour last night that for whatever reason, when they built the town, they decided to just build right over top of the river, and you can see it from the ground.
After our long day, we settled into our bed and breakfast. This was our last night in Jim Thorpe, and we were able to get plenty of rest before hiking around state parks the next day. We'll take you with us on those hiking excursions in our next video. Thanks for watching.